Begin this morning in Washington, D.C., where the fate of the COVID-19 relief bill is now uncertain. President Trump adding confusion to the bill's outlook last night, calling it a disgrace.
I am asking Congress to amend this bill and increase the ridiculously low $600 to $2,000 or $4,000 for a couple. I'm also asking Congress to immediately get rid of the wasteful and unnecessary items.
Nancy Pelosi responded to Trump's message by saying she welcomed his call for $2,000 checks. Bloomberg congressional reporter Anna Edgerton joins us right now to break it all down. Anna, it's really great to have you on the show. I have so many questions about this. I was just shocked last night when I saw this come from the president over Twitter, of course, but nothing should surprise us anymore. Big question, is the stimulus dead?
That is an excellent question. I don't think so, but we don't know yet. And there's kind of a few ways this could work out. You know, if Trump vetoes this bill, depending on when he does it, Congress might not have time to meet and override his veto because we're so close to the end of the year and the end of the Congress. If he doesn't act on it at all, if Congress doesn't adjourn, it will automatically become law. If Congress is forced to adjourn because it's the end of the year and we're about to have a new Congress, it would be a pocket veto. So there's kind of a calendar element to this that gets really tricky when we're getting towards the end of the 116th Congress and not much time for lawmakers to act.
So what does this mean for Americans who, since Monday and perhaps earlier, if people have been following this closely, were expecting $600 checks?
Well, we don't know yet. And, it's not just the $600 checks. It's also all of the other items in the package that were either extended or provided to help people kind of weather the next iteration of the pandemic. There are things like the $300 per week supplemental unemployment benefit. There was an extension of the eviction moratorium. There was additional aid for renters, for schools, for hospitals. There's a whole host of measures in this massive bill intended to help the U.S. economy weather this storm. And if that fiscal support doesn't get into the economy soon, it's going to have very dire effects for kind of on an individual level and on a systemic level.
Yeah, I mean, the stakes are incredibly high here, and I wonder, because there's so much uncertainty here, I wonder what Congress will end up doing. And it seems like the president, and a lot of Americans for that matter, are kind of confused about what exactly is in this package. And the president yesterday in this video referenced some big items that were getting funding in the package that were actually not necessarily part of the stimulus, but he really associated them with the stimulus. So can you settle this for us and sort of explain how the stimulus is tied into the government funding bill?
Yeah, Tim, you and I have been talking about this for about a month now because I always said if we're looking for COVID relief by the end of the year, it's probably going to hitch a ride on the end of the year spending bill. Now, these are just regular appropriations to keep federal agencies funded through the end of the fiscal year, which is September 30th. So, it's a massive $1.4 trillion bill, but it's normal government spending. This is funds for the State Department, for the Education Department, for foreign aid, for, all the things that the government does on a normal basis. So that $1.4 trillion was attached to the $900 billion in stimulus aid, which includes $284 billion for small businesses, the $164 billion that will go out in the form of $600 checks to individuals. All of that aid was tied up together. And then there were a few other provisions like tax breaks, tax credits, creating a museum of the American Latino and a women's history museum in the Smithsonian Institution. It's kind of the random catch-all things that this end of the year bill does, which is not necessarily related to the pandemic.
And certainly not out of the ordinary for a spending bill of this type. Political implications of this, Anna, starting with just the Republican Party that worked really hard along with Democrats to try to get something that they agreed on. What are the implications for Republican leadership with a rejection like this from Trump?
Yeah, Mitch McConnell is the person to watch right now, and he's put in a really difficult position because Democrats want $2,000 checks. They've been saying, the Congressional Progressive Caucus came out and said, our official policy position is that we want $2,000 checks. McConnell has been saying, that's too much money. We're concerned about the deficit. Fine, we'll do $600 checks. So the fact that Trump is now coming out to say, no, we want $2,000 checks, he's agreeing with the Progressive Caucus. And that puts McConnell in a really difficult position at a really bad time because we have these two Senate races, the runoffs in Georgia that are going to happen on January 5th. So those two Republican incumbents, Kelly Loeffler and David Perdue, have to either agree with Trump and the Progressive Caucus or agree with McConnell, the Senate leadership. So it's a really tricky position for Senate Republicans.
Yeah, I mean, I can't imagine them agreeing with the most progressive parts of the Democratic Party, like AOC, for example, who has wanted more.
Can you imagine them going against Trump?
Exactly. Yeah, it's a really bizarre sort of turn of events here, and really coming at the 11th hour. Anna, last question: where do they go from here? What happens next? What should we be watching?
So Pelosi and her deputy, Steny Hoyer, who's in charge of the House floor schedule, said last night that they are going to put this bill on the floor tomorrow. So the House has a pro forma session, and they are going to try to pass basically an amendment that would just kind of replace $600 checks with $2,000 checks in the bill that's already been passed. So it doesn't imperil the major legislation. We're not opening this up again. It's just a standalone amendment. That would have to pass unanimously, so we'll be watching to see which House member would try to block that. If no House member blocks it and it passes, it'll be up to McConnell whether or not to put it on the Senate floor, and I don't think he will at this point.
Wow. All right. Never a dull moment for you, despite the fact that we are close to the holidays here. No break, Anna. Bloomberg's Anna Edgerton, thank you, as always, for your time, Anna.
The biggest stories the moment they happen from around the globe. Subscribe to Bloomberg Quick Take now for insight in an instant.